The June jobs number is out. 850,000 new jobs in June. Hoorah! Things are going well, which is why I'm perplexed at our friend Carol Roth's new book, The War on Small Business. How the government used the pandemic to crush the backbone of America. What? As I understand it, from our intellectual and moral superiors like Triple Threat and Jelly Belly, the Biden administration obviously goes without saying, they saved lives, and now they're saving jobs. Propped up business with the PPP program and all of the relief that is all stimulative. That's what I understand from them. And now we're getting back to opening. Look how everything is normal. Chicago's getting back to normal. You got an alderman indicted. Everything is
Alderperson, Dan.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. But everything's back to how it's supposed to be. So what's all the caterwauling about this war on small business and government being a problem? Government's been the savior. Carol Roth, former investment banker, entrepreneur, author of The War on Small Business, How the Government Used the Pandemic to Crush the Backbone of America. Carol, I think you got a hard case to make out. 850,000 jobs in June. What are you complaining about?
Yeah, well, only a couple months ago we were expecting 1 million. So, when you continue to lower that bar, it looks really good, Dan, doesn't it? This is really about winners and losers and who's getting those jobs and, who's really stuck holding the bag. If you look back at last year, you had a government who decided who was essential and who was non-essential, who was going to thrive and who was going to fight to survive, and that was based not on data or science, but on political clout and connections. And that ended up enabling the most historic wealth transfer that we've ever seen in our lifetime from Main Street to Wall Street. Yes, you had 7 tech companies gain $3.4 trillion in value, and it was a record year for IPOs and for the big guys. But as we know, by the middle of last year, we had 400,000 small businesses that had closed permanently. We had millions more who are fighting to survive. So if you look at the whole picture, sure, they can paint a rosy one for you, but if you start to peel back the onion, this is really a consolidation of power and a moving away from free market, decentralized small businesses to a handful of big businesses and big government.
Yeah, but Illinois incomes are up 17% year over year, and savings rates are up because the income's up and because there's been less supply of the things people want. So yeah, okay. So maybe you took my business away.
Dan, do the math though.
Well, maybe you took my business away, but hey, you gave me some cash and some child tax credits, and you promised to continue sending drop shipping cash to me in perpetuity. So, things aren't bad.
Yeah, it's always good when you're starving for them to give you a crumb that's going to let you continue to survive one more day, and then they can decide if they were going to give you more. What's really disappointing here is you talk about things like the stimulus checks and all of this, kind of little payoff so they could say, we did our part. What happened on the small business front is they really got a fraction of what they deserved. I mean, the government came in, they subjugated their property rights. They said, we're going to take your business for the good of society. And they didn't appropriately compensate the small businesses. And even though we have seen trillions of dollars spent, and as you mentioned, the extended unemployment, the stimulus, all the Cash for Cronies program, when it came down to it, small businesses who bore the brunt of those government mandates really got a fraction of that. And certainly it wasn't enough to keep them in business. We've seen that here, in the Chicagoland area. I mean, look at something like Southport Lanes. Been around for almost 100 years, couldn't make it. It survived Prohibition as a bar, but couldn't survive the government COVID mandates.
Well, and in Illinois, the situation is still dire. So I think those 850,000 jobs, I mean, most of them are probably in surrounding states. The war on business goes on in the state of Illinois. I mean, we just... even the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, who actually kind of plays to both sides, said this was the worst General Assembly for business in generations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point, Jeannie. I mean, we still, even with this jobs report, we're still nearly 7 million jobs down across the country from where we were in February 2020. And you were seeing a differential in terms of the states that decided to opt out of these extended unemployment benefits. Surprise, surprise, that's going to get people back to work when you take the compensation for staying home away. Obviously, Illinois is not yet one of those states, and so it's certainly not going to have the same type of outcomes. They never seem to think in a business-friendly manner or in a manner that's actually going to grow the pie and create wealth opportunities for people. They just want to continue to shuffle money around, which net ends up decreasing everybody's wealth.
So the landscape for that small to mid-sized business owner operator, when the water really recedes and we see what's left, after the eviction moratorium is pulled, after the enhanced unemployment benefits is pulled, when we really see things start to shake out in the third and fourth quarter this year, what does the first quarter of 2022 look like, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to end up seeing that millions of small businesses were murdered just based on, the numbers that we're seeing and the trajectory that we're seeing. And we're going to see a continued tilted playing field. I mean, we've seen it for years, whether it's in crazy regulation, licensing, differentials, and taxes. Now the small businesses are getting the quote-unquote de facto minimum wage increase because obviously the government's been competing with them in terms of employment, and then you're seeing higher prices, you're seeing broken supply chains. And if you think about the economy before COVID, about half of that was 30.2 million small businesses. The other half was about 10+ thousand big businesses. And you're just going to see this continued consolidation of power amongst the hands of fewer businesses, which is less economic freedom. And just across the board, if you think about wealth creation opportunities for the individual in America, it's equity ownership, it's ownership of a business, it's being able to buy stocks, it's being able to own a home. And at every turn, the government is interfering with your opportunity as the average American, as the little guy, to create and participate in wealth creation. And that's something that everybody should be concerned about. And unfortunately, is like the most underreported story of the last 15 months.
But I watch those investotainment channels, and most of the people I see on like CNBC, they cheer those government interventions you're talking about. Andrew Sullivan wrote last year that we're all on a college campus now talking about the oppressive Jacobin purge that's going on. Maybe we're all rent seekers now too.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I've been in the markets for more than a quarter of a century, and to see it completely move away from free market capitalism to the Federal Reserve disrupting risk in the market the way that it has, those people, and many of them I've worked with before, many of them I continue to work with, they're seeing the benefits of that. They are in the in club. They're the ones who are getting the benefits of free money from the taxpayer, basically, to go out and make additional investments and increase their wealth. So, they're cheering it on, but that doesn't mean if you take a step back and look at the broader economy or think about history, when you have this consolidation of wealth not via free markets but via government mandate, how that ends up turning out for a country. It's not a good thing for everyone. And if you really have that abundance mentality of a free market capitalist, you believe that everyone should have the opportunity to have those wealth creation opportunities. And unfortunately, those are being strangled off.
Well, we don't seem to care about free markets, right? The U.S. wins international backing for a global minimum tax. Do we care anymore about competing against our rivals or what?
I mean, this is bizarre world, Jeannie. I mean, I can't believe that the U.S. is heading up a global cartel to
That's exactly
taxes.
it.
I mean, we have completely...
It's price collusion. Price collusion, right? Shouldn't they be charged with that?
I mean, you would think so. Yeah, I laid the case out in the book, The War on Small Business, that we really have moved along the spectrum further away from capitalism to central planning, and you're seeing these geniuses make the same mistakes that they've made before. We saw it with our relationship with China. Now we're seeing it with this global minimum tax rate. They want to control everything, and we know when a handful of people make those decisions, they have worse outcomes than if the entire world is doing that by free choice. So it is really bizarro world and should be very concerning to everybody.
Yeah, on the spectrum, indeed. Carol Roth, former investment banker, entrepreneur, the book, The War on Small Business, How the Government Used the Pandemic to Crush the Backbone of America. Pick it up, The War on Small Business. Carol Roth, thanks so much for joining us.
All right, have a great Freedom Weekend, guys.
You too.
Thank
Take
you.
care. And she joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Do you suffer from peripheral neuropathy in your hands or feet? One drug after the other, continual numbness and tingling, burning pain, balance problems, and decreased quality of life? Are you slowly losing your independence? Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Fisher and lead clinician of Gold Coast Chiropractic. There is now a non-invasive, natural solution for your neuropathy right here in Chicago that addresses the cause and